Good evening, everyone. Agus fáilte chuig ar cruinniúach the Ballymun. Welcome everybody, and thank you very much for coming here tonight for our meeting. I'm sure many of you are motivated by feelings of frustration, disgust, or annoyance at the slow pace of change in our communities, or even desperation that many of our critical services are going further into decline. It is as if Aontú has been a singular voice in the wilderness, shouting stop, asking the questions, seeking the reports from government's performance. Incredible work, as you know, has been done by Mairéad Tóibín, who unfortunately cannot be here tonight with us. He has his own hustings tonight down in Mayo. But tonight we have a chance to listen to some more reasonable, sane voices that are challenging in the local elections and the European elections too. First up, we have Robbie Loughlin. Robbie is standing in Blanchardstown, Mulhuddart area, which is not a million miles away from here, a few minutes over the road. And Robbie is going to speak on crime in the mother.
Hi everybody, thanks for that. My name is Robbie Loughlin. I'm passionate about my community. I've been a community rep for about 8 years in a voluntary capacity. I joined Aontú as politically, there really wasn't anything out there. Everything seems to be really left, everything seems to be really right, and then other things in the middle. I've lived for 25 years within 5 minutes of this building, between Santry and Finglas, just up the road there, Leakstown on the edge, which people commonly call Finglas, and we don't argue anymore. That's what it is. It's Dublin 11, that's where we are. My role in the community sees me deal with Gardaí and crime quite a lot actually. I deal with people who have houses broken into who Gardaí don't turn up. They don't. You have to go down to a Garda station to report a crime if somebody's kicked your front door in and robbed your house. It's not acceptable. I'm under no illusions that crime is everywhere. Having lived, as I said, within 5 minutes of here for 25 years, seen an awful lot of crime that's happened in all of those times. The latest figures actually on the guards is actually quite interesting. There's 130 Gardaí stations here in Ballymun, just a few doors down the road, for 22,000 people. There's 82 in Santry for about 12,000 people. And believe it or not, there's 46 in Dublin Airport, mind on whatever goes on up there. The figures are not enough. There are not enough police, there are not enough Gardaí on the beat here. The Minister for Justice has failed the people here in that regard. It just is, there are so many people who are victims of crime. It's unbelievable. Over in Ireland, there's 13,980 Gardaí at the moment, right? There should be 15,000 plus. They've failed in recruitment. 6,400 are due to retire by 2028. So what happens between now and then? Who knows? It just, the plan doesn't exist. Now the government obviously will change next year, hopefully, and new people will come in. But this area of crime everywhere affects everybody. As I said, recruitment targets are not being met. Last year, 520 Gardaí left and 388 came in. So we actually lost Gardaí last year. A €4 million contract to recruit Gardaí has been given to a UK company in Nottingham called Staffline. That makes no sense whatsoever. It's absurd. Community policing can't happen without extra Gardaí being recruited as soon as possible. Now, I deal a lot with community Gardaí, just up the road in the Finglas Garda station, and it's a difficult job. They're under-resourced. Some of them are just straight off. They're not trained properly to deal with the things that they have to deal with. It's a thankless task for frontline Gardaí. It really is. More visible Gardaí on the streets. They have to be there. We up where I live now in Leakstown, which is just up the road literally. We fight for Gardaí on our streets, and to do that, like every single thing I do as a community activist, it's a fight, it's a row. You meet somebody in a higher office, they'll come back to you, they'll do this, they'll do that. Our councillors are all in Dublin 15, so they don't care, they don't do anything. And the community, as I said, is just left to fall into disrepair. Victims of crime also need more Garda input. If somebody's house is broken into, it's an awful thing to happen to them. There are people traumatised by these kind of crimes, and to not even have a Garda turn up to your house, it's unthinkable. Our communities need to feel protected. Criminals should not escape proper sentencing. This is a big thing I have. My daughter was mugged a couple of months ago in town, and the guy who mugged her and took her handbag had 76 previous convictions, yet he's walking the streets. They knew him by his first name. It's just, in this day and age, it's not acceptable. 76 previous convictions, as I said. I believe there's more actually. The guards told me there's people who walk around with 124 convictions, 125 convictions. The prisons are full. There's nowhere to put them. But at the same time, they're putting people in prison for TV licence evasion. It makes no sense. The system is broken. And again, I can't repeat, we need laws implemented because all the laws exist in many areas across the board. They're not implemented, they're just written, they look nice, they look great, but we need to be protected. So I'm going to open an act, warming up with crime, which is a lovely subject. Thanks very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thanks a million, Robbie. I think one of the points there is that we have now the lowest number of guards we've ever had in the last 5 years. And we have one of the smallest per capita police forces in the EU. And why is that come about? It's poor guard. We're not supporting our guards, but one of those things is because the Aontú has actually brought forward legislation to introduce minimum sentence for those who assault guards in their duty. Just, there has to be some protection and encouragement for people to join the police force. Our next speaker is Ian Smyth. Ian is a self-employed architect and he's going to speak on housing. Good morning.
Hello everyone.
Hello.
I am Ian Smyth. I am the local election candidate for Cabra, Glasnevin for Dublin City Council, and I'd just like to say a few words on housing and the government's shambolic policies in relation to it. As an architect and a project manager, I understand the need for a sustainable vision for the future of urban life in our constituency. And I'm familiar with the Dublin City Development Plan and its shortcomings. I have a real concern about the housing crisis, lack of social affordable housing and homelessness, and I believe that Aontú have viable solutions to offer here. I've been active in promoting planning the suburbs to existing councillors and government departments and other relevant bodies to finally solve these problems once and for all. I believe in modern principles of design and construction to produce buildings with zero carbon emissions and the use of all renewables for the future protection of our environment, and also fast-tracked residential and commercial projects exempt from planning if absolutely necessary. At the same time, there's 13,000 people on Dublin City Council's housing list with waiting time of up to 8 years. Due to the current housing crisis, many families have adult children still living at home, and this will hinder their development and aspirations of these young adults. As I said, the government policy is shambolic. It is estimated that 50,000 houses per annum is required for the next 30 years. Under 33,000 units were built in 2023. This is just not enough. 86,000 houses were built in 2005. The population has increased from 5 million, now 5.1 million up. It's estimated to 6.8 million in 2021. Sorry, in 2051. So we're looking at a major population shift in Ireland going forward, and we're just not planning for it. There is solutions to this. The government must resource the local authorities to build more social and affordable housing that was successful and achieved in the 1930s and 1940s. You know, I'm canvassing Cabra and Cabra West at the moment, and like that was all built by the council and the government in the past. There's no reason why we can't go back to that model. And this is the same for local authorities in every county in Ireland, not just Dublin. So local authorities have to be given the power to purchase or compulsorily acquire land for housing. They must engage architects and engineers and surveyors within the department to design housing schemes and put them out to competitive tender for contractors to build. In the meantime, they must also stop acquiring land from investment funds and others where it makes no sense long term to be spending this kind of money when they could be making the choices for themselves to own the houses and then decide what to do with them, social, affordable or otherwise. We can't be relying on private development to build social affordable homes. Also, we have lots of properties like overshops and businesses which could be repurposed for residential accommodation, as well as vacant office building spaces all over the city. We must find a solution to urban regeneration. Every community in Ireland, village, small town, is looking at a likely increase in the very short term of 10%. So we must build for that. We must create sustainable timber, temporary housing on land adjacent to villages or towns on service infrastructure. This can be funded by the state and the local community. The houses would last up to 20-25 years and be temporary and be built as exempt from planning, like many other schemes that's happening at the moment. There's one that's quite interesting, is the SI 75 regulations, where you can convert a vacant commercial property into residential without planning, of which I've done a few. So, it's there for us. We will have to run our local communities, provide jobs for our locals and new residents as well as part of this process. This will help the environment by keeping people working where they live. This will help the local communities as well, and the quality of life for all our families. This is Ian Smyth. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. For many people have been looking at housing as an intractable problem, and indeed it takes a long while from planning for houses to be completed. But one of the areas that Aontú has looked at is the amount of empty local authority houses. There are 3,500 empty local authority houses, and on average it takes 8 months for these houses to turn over for a new tenancy. 8 months. Can you imagine a private landlord leaving a house vacant for 8 months and losing 8 months rent? It wouldn't happen. These are very simple, these are easy steps that as councillors we can change in the local council. We can pressurise the council to turn over these buildings more quickly. The next speaker we have is Edward MacManus. Edward is, as you well know, a community pharmacist here in the area, and this is his LEA. And Edward's going to speak tonight on the shopping centre.
Thank you, Mairéad, and thanks everyone for coming in here. Just for those who don't know me, I'm Edward MacManus. I'm a pharmacist in Ballymun for over 30 years, and I've been privileged to be a pharmacist here for over 30 years. I've seen a lot of changes down through the years, a lot of good, a lot not so good. And but one thing that has remained is the indomitable spirit of people in this community, which has survived everything that's been thrown at it. There's been I've led a number of initiatives down through the years, including developing the methadone scheme in Ballymun for people with substance abuse problems. I've also highlighted the decline of the shopping centre in the last number of decades, and I carried out a petition where we got 10,000 signatures from locals here outlining the fact that it was a mistake to close the shopping centre, and if it did, then there would be problems. So unfortunately, the existing councils voted to close the shopping centre back in 2014, and we've been struggling since then. The legal doesn't provide what the shopping centre used to provide, and unfortunately, the decline of the super value and the closure there recently has compounded the problem. And when you ask Dublin City Council what's happening, you don't get any reply. You're sent from Billy to Jack, and the latest excuse is we'll see what happens when the metro's built. Now, we've been a long time waiting for the metro to be built, and it may be in my children's time, but I doubt it'll be in our time the way things are going. So it's important that we stick together. One of the things that worked well for Ballymun community down through the years was setting up community coalitions. A lot of the old style activists were very good at it, and I think it's probably something we need to get back to. One of the issues that I have dealt with in the last year is an issue of the Ballymun Plaza. There was a fire there, as you probably all know, and there was huge problems engaging with the authorities in relation to that. And they had a public meeting, I think, and all the great and the good and the politicians came into being and promised the sun, moon and stars, but nothing really happened. And it was only when we got together and started working as a community and we met on a weekly basis and we addressed the problems, and we politely addressed the authority figures who were responsible for resolving those problems. And over a period of months, we got resolution to a lot of them. They all haven't been solved, and there's more work to be done. But we have got a local girl on the management company now, and we've got a number of other people about to be appointed to the management company. So that will give us the power then to decide where funding in the area goes and to resolve issues such as security and outstanding insurance issues in relation to that issue. Now, one of the things I would like to see, and I have a petition here, basically is for people to sign up to join a Ballymun Community Coalition. I have here your name and address and telephone number and email address. If you want to join, you can take it yes or no, and if you want to be informed, you can take it yes or no. All right. So the idea basically would be to get Dan Tabb has done a bit of work in this. You probably know Dan Tabb is a local activist who's done a lot of work in relation to children and bringing them into sports, and it's to bring people, the community together, residents, business people, teachers, clergymen, to get an overall picture of where Ballymun is going as a community and to deliver. One of the frustrating things, I've been going door to door over the last few months, as you know, one of the frustrating things I found is that I will raise an issue, be it a simple issue or a more complex issue with DCC. Now, if it's a simple issue like littering, they will engage with the issue and they'll clear it up fairly fast. If it's a case, then I ask, well, why is a persistent person littering? You know, I've looked at the litter, it contains their name and address, it is quite obvious who this person is. Can we actually prosecute and issue litter fines and wardens? I don't get a resolution. And this is where being a councillor is important. That the easy things can be sorted out by citizens as they are, but it takes an elected official to go in and sort of say, well, actually, I've raised this issue a number of times. Yeah, there's a huge problem at the minute outside Lidl, and anybody who's gone into Lidl at particular times of the day knows that there's parking on both sides of the road. Okay, it's a nuisance if you're accessing Lidl, but if you're a resident in the area, it's a huge problem because you can't. Children are coming out from parked cars, and there's a danger then with people trying to navigate both for themselves and their children. So these issues need to be brought up and they need to be resolved at an elected level. I think as a community coalition we can lobby Dublin City Council and the other officials to have proper services here. This community is the size of Sligo, and anybody who's been in Sligo recently, I think there's about 5 shopping centres of different sizes, including major shopping centres. There's no reason why we can't have that here. And if you look at the way, and it's one of the frustrating things over the last few decades is that I've seen how Blanchardstown has developed, and the community in Blanchardstown went to the politicians and asked for housing. And the politicians said, no, we're going to deliver a shopping centre there, and that will bring the housing on. And if you compare the development of Blanchardstown versus Ballymun, very similar areas, you can see what this has led to. The fact that the Blanchardstown shopping centre has been a huge, it has its disadvantages, but it's been a huge benefit to the people of Blanchardstown and to the surrounding working class areas and the council houses. So unfortunately it wasn't delivered here. We had a huge opportunity here, and I remember dealing with NAMA at the time prior to the closure of the shopping centre, and NAMA said, you know, we've developed Charlestown because we have free access to that. People may give out about NAMA, but they're there to develop properties. Unfortunately, Dublin City Council was too wedded to was too much in control. And I used to work for an old pharmacist here, Joe Sodee, that many of you might remember. And he always mentioned that the problem with Ballymun is Dublin City Council had too much power. That and they were able to have a veto over things. Like the shopping centre, they told the politicians back in 2014. We need to close the shopping centre in order to come up with a plan. They did that, and we're still waiting for it. So I think we need to be more proactive, and we need to start getting together and start advocating for what needs to be done. And I think sometimes when you start off advocating, the solution is not necessarily what you're what you thought of, but it's getting other people in. You're going to raise solutions. There's a huge problem in relation to there's a whole load of empty units here which have never been filled, and we have a problem now with the fact that the super value is closed means that we've nothing apart from Lidl here, and there's no competition. And the problem is 90%, it used to be 85% of people in Ballymun shop outside Ballymun. The figure is probably far higher now. And it's going to, we badly need to put the spotlight back on the council, and there's an empty unit over there. They need to start coming up with plans and coming up with ideas. I've talked to a number of developers, and they've been told that they don't get an audience with Dublin City Council. Dublin City Council say it's not yet. And I think we need to start coming up with a planning competition for the area where people are able to have access and be able to give their points of view. So I think so as I said, I'll pass this out, and it would be great if you could fill that in. If you don't have the time to join, that's fine. We'll keep you informed. But I think it's important that we get as wide a spectrum as possible involved. And it won't be a huge amount of time, but I think it's important to set the message that there is a community organisation here. And sometimes when you elect politicians, they get involved in council and they forget where they come from. I'm the local pharmacist here. I'll be here I'll be here one way or the other, and I have my ears to the ground and I know what's happening. And I think I have had a positive impact over the last few months. That house there, by myself and Conrad, we were pictured outside back in August. That's now up and running as now a family home. So to a certain extent, Mairéad had said that the average time is 8 months. It's a bit less than here because we bring this to the attention of the council and they get embarrassed into opening it. And it's quite sad that we are in this position. There is a bit of good news. The council have started coming up with building houses again, and they should never have stopped. And the problem, the main reason for the housing shortage at the minute is the council aren't building houses. Now they're building a nice development, about 700 houses opposite St. Pappin's, but it's not nearly enough. And there needs to be, one of the big issues that people raise with me is getting onto the housing list. There needs to be more transparency into who gets onto the housing list and how and what, and obviously it's confidentiality, but there needs to be a clear, open and transparent process so that there's no imputation of anything going on that shouldn't be going on. We have Aontú it's a new party, and I've been explaining to people on the doorsteps of what it's about, and we've definitely struck a chord. And one of the things we're trying to do now is to come up with new solutions to all problems. And the problem with Irish politics over the last number of years is, oh, well, there's nothing can be done. It's the old party saying nothing makes a change. Well, you know, we are going to make a change. And one of the classic changes recently was the referendums. People were a bit despondent, and they sort of said, sure, they'll get it through. That's the way they are. They've control of the media, and people are going to vote yes. And about 2 weeks before the referendum, the Business Post came out saying 58% of people were going to vote yes. But yet 95% of people in the Virgin Mary School in Ballymun voted no. And we like to think that the average figure for the country was 75% in most constituencies. Here it was 95%, and we like to think that we're partly responsible for the extra 20%. Maybe it might be a bit. One of the things that got people was, especially young women, was this business of taking motherhood out of the Constitution, and that one of no matter what family it is, the mother is the single component which is common to all families, and that was recognised by the people, and they weren't going to tolerate taking it out of the Constitution. They also raised concerns about, and we were subsequently justified, about uncontrolled migration, which would happen if this referendum came about, and we were vindicated by that, by advice that Roger Kilgorman only let out at the last minute, but the Attorney General had clearly agreed with our points of view. So we have, if anybody's interested in joining Aontú, we have application forms here. And thank you very much for your time. I'd like to see this as, and I invited a lot of people here on the basis of the fact that it wouldn't be just us talking to you, you'll be talking back to us and raising issues and that. And we're deadly serious about solving a lot of the problems. And don't be thinking just because we've had them for years that they're not going to be resolved. In fact, you know, and I wouldn't always agree with Bertie Ahern, but you know, he did have a vision for peace in the north, and it just shows you how powerful visions are. And I think we need to have, a lot of people here are in Ballymun because they like living and working in the area and they're proud of the area. And I think we have a huge base to build on, both the old and the new Ballymun. And I think we have, it's all to play for. I think people need to stand up, and I would certainly support you as a pharmacist and as a public representative. I would be delighted to support a larger coalition of community groups to start pushing for these. But we need to start saying that everywhere else has these facilities, we need to have them. You know, young men and young women who want to set up shops in the area shouldn't be told there's a massive rent and you're not being allowed because Dublin City Council has kept this closed for 20 years and probably keep it closed for the next 20 years. We want local people to be able to access housing for their close to their family, and we want them to be listened to and provide a voice. And the first step is you coming here tonight, and I really appreciate it because I'm sure you've other stuff that you could have been doing with your time. Thanks very much, and I hope to listen to you.
Edward. We've all heard it in New York, our strength is in our numbers. People do have power. It does work when people come together. So I urge you all to get involved with the Ballymun Community Coalition. You know, you become a force to be reckoned with if people are on board. And please spread the word to your friends and neighbours. Our final speaker tonight is Aisling Considine, and Aisling is standing as our Aontú's European candidate for Dublin. Aisling is a teacher, originally from Limerick, but now living in Dublin, and I've just handed over to you. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for coming out tonight. As Mairéad said, my name is Aisling Considine and I'm a mother and a primary school teacher, and I'm very proud to be standing for Aontú as the local election candidate in southwestern City Dublin, and also as the European candidate, as Mairéad said, for Dublin. I think we're all here tonight because we want to see some common sense brought back into politics. Now, I'll be honest, I never really had any ambition to run in an election. Like, I didn't want my face on a poster, up a poll, and lose my anonymity, but I just felt like I had to stand up and do something. Because when I look at the current government, I just think, where are the adults in the room? Like, where is the common sense? All we seem to be getting from this government and from the so-called opposition parties is contempt. They have completely disregarded the needs and concerns of ordinary people like you and me in our communities, while displaying a total lack of accountability. From overspending on projects like the National Children's Hospital to the crisis in our immigration system. There's no plan, no common sense, and no accountability. And that's what Aontú, with Mairéad Tóibín at the helm, have to offer. We want to see common sense, we want to examine the issues and the legislation, and be a voice for the ordinary people to address their everyday issues. At Aontú, we have the integrity to stand up for what is right, and we demand accountability in where it is currently lacking. I want to bring an alternative voice to Europe to challenge the narrative on immigration, to oppose the attacks on our neutrality and our sovereignty. But most importantly, I want to put the people of Dublin and of Ireland first in Brussels, and to be your democratic watchdog in the European Parliament. For every piece of legislation that comes through the EU Parliament, I will bring Aontú's signature brand of common sense to bear in it, critically analysing how it will affect ordinary people like you and me. That's what I want to bring to Europe, and that's why I'm standing for Aontú. And I look forward to your questions and hearing your perspectives on what you want to see from your representatives in the European Parliament tonight. Gurb Maibud.
So as Edward said there, we'd like to hear from people here tonight any questions or any issues that you would like us to raise further. We won't record the next bit, so people can speak freely, and we ask you to speak respectfully.